This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we discuss the sudden disappearance of Cynthia Anderson, who vanished from her job in Toledo, Ohio almost 40 years ago.
I don't like the sound of that. What? Vanishing from your job? I would rather vanish from my home.
That's true.
Vanishing on the job, you're still working and then you just want to go home for the day. Too bad, you got vanished.
All right, let's just get into it.
In August of 1981, Cynthia Jane Anderson was preparing for a new chapter in her life. The 20-year-old had been raised in a very religious household of Christian fundamentalists, following a schedule packed with church prayer meetings, church swimming events, church camping trips, seasonal church parties, and church worship on Sundays. Cynthia's father, Michael Anderson, described Cynthia as a quiet, obedient type of girl who never made waves, yet had lots of friends.
It's too much church. Can't be going to church that much, right? Too much church.
I mean, look, I don't know if we need to turn this into a commentary on the church.
It's not a commentary, I'm just saying it's too much church.
She was a woman of faith who wasn't making any trouble. That's all that's communicating there.
I mean, she could have made trouble. If I were going to church that much, I'd kill someone.
Cynthia was described by a neighbor as an attractive young woman, one who, quote, maybe caught the attention of a passerby, end quote. And while her parents insisted on strict rules and curfews while at home, Cynthia nevertheless had a boyfriend, also a part of the church. That summer, her father said Cynthia had been spending a lot of time on her face and becoming a bit of a debutante.
We've all got phases in our lives where we're spending a lot of time on our faces, acting a bit like a debutante. We all do that. I do that every day. Spend a lot of time on my face.
Clearly.
You think this took 7.5 hours today?
I don't
the
believe
whole
it,
ensemble?
but I do believe it at the same time, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So, can't judge someone for that.
Cynthia worked as a legal secretary in Toledo, Ohio, but was preparing to quit in order to attend Bible college, the same one in which her boyfriend was currently enrolled. And by the way things were going at the office, her last day at work couldn't come soon enough.
Sounds like a bad work environment.
Sounds like some foreshadowing here.
Can't be fun to be a secretary at a law firm.
Also, in this time, especially probably not so.
Trying to think of a good lawyer joke. Because lawyers, nobody likes them, right?
No, you're doing great. This is good stuff.
You got a lawyer joke?
No, I was actually just watching.
Look, we haven't toured the Borscht Belt, okay? We're not comedians. We're just a couple of assholes.
Unnerving events had begun to happen at work. The previous year, on a wall across from her office window, someone painted the words, "I love you, Cindy," in large letters, along with a smaller, "by GW." According to one of her friends, Cynthia was the only Cindy who worked on that side of the strip mall where the law office was located. The sign seemed intentionally placed in order for Cynthia to see it. Cynthia apparently had no idea who GW could have been. The message remained up for 6 months before finally being covered up.
6 months?
Don't do this to people. Don't be painting "I love you" on buildings. It's not fun for anybody.
No.
Maybe if you're asking someone to homecoming.
Yeah, like homecoming or prom.
Fun.
You can paint that all you want.
Paint it.
Paint it in big ass letters.
Put it on the side of a barn.
HC question mark.
Yeah, you don't want to write all the letters.
No, I mean,
HCW me? Question mark? From question mark? And then you're like the Riddler. You send like a little Blair Witch thing with a bunch of twigs and some blood or something.
A few weeks later, the same message reappeared, this time in even larger letters. The sign, however, would soon become the least of Cynthia's worries.
What do you think of the strategy of like, all right, first sign didn't work, let's make it bigger?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of, when people are obsessed, I'm going to guess they're not really thinking logically. This person is not like, well, I guess that didn't work and I should hang it up.
Yeah.
Clearly they're like, well, I guess the issue was it wasn't scary enough.
Obviously, she couldn't see it. She couldn't read it. Okay, I'll make it bigger and I'll make the font brighter.
Not the move.
Not the move. If you're taking notes out there, don't do that.
In that summer of '81, Cynthia began to be harassed by anonymous phone calls with disturbing, ominous messages. One of the law firm's clients, Larry Mullins, recalled a time when Cynthia received a call while he was in the office. Mullins said Cynthia picked up the phone and quickly hung up, only for the phone to ring again soon afterwards. According to Mullins, Cynthia's face betrayed the fact that, quote, she was scared, honestly, sincerely scared, end quote. Cynthia began experiencing recurring nightmares in which she would be kidnapped and murdered by a stranger. Due to the phone calls and Cynthia's growing and understandable paranoia, her employers instructed her to keep the office's doors locked at all times, even during business hours. They also installed an emergency buzzer at her desk, which would alert a nearby business if she were to use it. Unfortunately, these precautions would turn out to be inadequate.
Jesus
That
Christ.
sounds like a waking nightmare.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
And also kind of crazy that they did take these precautions and that they weren't enough.
Yeah, it's odd that they're like, well, you're in peril. It seems like you're in perilous danger. Here's a button.
I mean, they installed it's unfortunately dangerous to be a woman button, and they gave her that, and that still wasn't enough. Which, by the way, they should have a security detail there, not just a light that shows nearby businesses in the strip mall that she's in trouble. I don't know what anybody who's like working in Aunt Anne's Pretzels is gonna do if they see that red light go off. It's not like...
It's Auntie Anne's.
Oh, is it Auntie Anne's?
Have some fucking respect.
On Tuesday, August 4th, 1981, Cynthia skipped breakfast and left her parents' home around 8:30 a.m. She drove to the law office on East Manhattan Boulevard and was seen as late as 9:45 a.m. Around noon, her employer, attorney James Rabbit, arrived at the office. The lights and radio were on, but there was no sign of Cynthia. The scent of nail polish or nail polish remover reportedly hung in the air. Cynthia was known to leave a note and place the phones on hold if she was stepping out of the office, but she hadn't done either. There was no sign of a struggle, and according to some reports, the office door was still locked from the inside. Though her car, a 1980 Chevy Citation, was still in the parking lot, her keys and purse were missing. Perhaps most eerily, a romance novel that Cynthia had been reading was left open on her desk, turned to a page that described the protagonist being abducted at knife point.
That's weird, huh?
She was reading it, but for it to be open at that page suggests we're dealing with an abductor here who's a real a-hole, who has a flair for the dramatic.
But then what is the abductor reading through the book? What, like if this is broad daylight.
In the middle of an office.
At any moment, someone could come in.
The door...
He's not taking the time to thumb through a book for a funny little clue.
Unless he had been watching her so much that he had the book himself, knew which page to turn to, and then did that.
Maybe.
It seems weirdly coincidental, especially when you consider all the other things.
Oh yeah, I guess it could just be a coincidence, yeah.
With a woman missing and precious few clues to help us, it's time to dive into theories about what happened to Cynthia Anderson these 39 years ago. Our first theory is that an obsessed stalker kidnapped Cynthia. Between the phone calls and the "I love you, Cindy" sign, it seems someone definitely wanted to get the young woman's attention. Detective William Adams of the Toledo Police Department said investigators worked with Cynthia's friends to try to figure out who GW could be. They were able to turn up only one suspect, a maintenance man with those initials who worked in the building and had keys to all the office doors. No evidence was ever found indicating the man was somehow responsible, however, and no charges were ever brought.
It's odd to put your own initials if you're trying to be a creep.
That's
right?
true, but this is also the same person who thought it was maybe, oh, the letters weren't big enough. Let's try that and give that another go.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I would also assume there's security cameras, and it can't be good for job security to start an art display on the opposite building within view of all your employers. As much as this may be compelling, it seems a little too easy.
Eventually, the man who spray painted the "I love Cindy" sign reportedly did come forward. He said the message was intended for a different Cynthia, and once again, he was never charged.
Huh?
The guy who wrote the thing. said
Yeah?
He came forward. And It was intended for a different person.
What? What are we doing here?
I'm putting us into the mind of the investigators here.
A different Cynthia.
Yeah.
Did she see it?
I actually don't know that.
I would have asked. Sounds like bad investigators. I'd been like, tell me your story. How'd you meet?
She's my wife.
Are you
now.
in love? We're married. We have
She
six
she
kids.
loved the sign. She loved it. And they'd be like, did she see it? And he would say, you tell me. Shows the ring.
Yeah.
She's
Oh,
my
I thought
wife.
he had a finger missing. You tell me. She bit my finger off.
Yeah.
Strange that they wouldn't look into this guy, huh?
Well, I guess they did. We actually reached out to see what came of that, but he wasn't charged, and I guess it wasn't for that Cynthia, which they must have verified somehow, which means to me he must have married said Cynthia or
Yeah,
been
nailed it.
together with that Cynthia, because
Yeah.
they would be like, well, oh, of course it was that other Cynthia.
Show us your Cynthia. Where
Where
is she?
Jesus Christ, here's my wallet. There's 4 kids. See, you can see that Cynthia. That's me and her, please.
Flip, 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 flip.
A month after Cynthia disappeared, police received an anonymous phone call from a nervous, whispering female voice. The caller claimed Cynthia Anderson was being held in the basement of a white house. There were apparently 2 houses next to one another, owned by the same out-of-town family. The woman on the phone claimed to know the son of the family was the one holding Cynthia. Police begged for more details, but the caller hung up. Searches for houses like the one described yielded nothing.
Well, that's terrifying, Ryan. That's no fun. I don't like to hear that. I've said this before, but teens, when they get crank calling, they're out of control.
I hope
And
not.
I can see them being like, did you hear about this lady who went missing in our town? Oh, I dare you to call the cops. Tell them you seen her.
Well,
Okay, Jonesy.
if I had a kid who did that,
You'd lock him in the shed.
he'd get a talking to. That's all I'd have
yeah,
to say.
talking to is probably more reasonable.
Which, in the Bergara family, means locking them in the shed.
yeah.
Our next theory is that Cynthia Anderson was murdered, perhaps for overhearing information about a drug deal. One of the attorneys working in the same office as Cynthia in 1981 was Richard Neller. In turn, one of Neller's clients was Jose Rodriguez Jr. In 1996, Neller and Rodriguez were both convicted for involvement in a long-time drug conspiracy. Authorities theorized that Cynthia could have perhaps overheard Neller and Rodriguez discussing some drug deals. She would then have been kidnapped and murdered to secure her silence. In Rodriguez's 1995 trial, one informant testified that Rodriguez had admitted to having murdered the young woman while threatening Neller, whom he accused of representing him poorly. The judge ruled the admittance unreliable, concluding there was insufficient evidence to say either Neller or Rodriguez were involved in her disappearance, or that she had been kidnapped or murdered at all.
That's a strange thing to lie about, though.
You know, but it
I
seems
know,
to be...
I know we always go over this like, well, sometimes people lie about it because it's a trophy for them or
It's
whatever.
really weird.
Who would do that?
It's weird to me how often this occurs, though, that somebody will willingly confess to something, and then
No
people
way.
will be like, don't believe you.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Let's keep investigating.
Especially if they were like, sorry, we got you on these drug charges. How do you plead? I killed a lady.
2 other possible murderers are brothers Anthony and Nathaniel Cook. Over the course of 16 months in the 1980s, the 2 brothers murdered at least 9 people across Ohio, mostly young women. In 2000, as part of a plea deal with the prosecutor in Lucas County, the same county whence Cynthia disappeared, the Cook brothers confessed on tape to many homicides, though they denied killing Cynthia Anderson.
It's embarrassing to murder with your brother.
E-
Can you imagine?
What?
To murder with your brother?
That's what you took from that?
It's embarrassing.
How is that? I mean, it's embarrassing to murder, yeah.
If I went to my brother and said, ooh, I'm fired up. I'm going to murder Ryan Bergara.
Okay.
Can you help me? I hope that he would say, maybe sleep on it.
This is being taped, right? I
Yeah.
feel like this is like a recounted conversation.
Our third theory is that Cynthia ran away. The Anderson household had been described as a strict one, as Cynthia's sister described, quote, "My parents wanted us involved with church, and we were," end quote. Perhaps Cynthia, staring down the barrel of attending Bible college with a boyfriend who was also a part of the church, wanted to see the world apart from her sheltered vantage point, and walking away was the easiest way to do so. As we already mentioned, Cynthia's father had noted her further taking interest in her looks and dieting in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. He suggested these changes may have, quote, contributed to his daughter going missing, end quote.
This is a thin line to walk.
A lot of church.
And I didn't want to front load the episode with this, but it seems like it's unavoidable now.
A lot of church.
You can't just keep saying a lot of church.
A lot of church.
I mean, it
Church. What are you doing Sunday? Church. Tuesday, church. Wednesday, church. How about some church? Want to do more church? What's your boyfriend like? Well, he likes church. What do you guys do for fun? Church.
It's true, it's a lot of church.
What are you going to study in school? More church. We study Bible. Unfortunately.
Moderation.
So what are you going to be doing for the rest of your life? Just church?
Moderation is
I'm
key.
out of there.
Moderation is key.
I'm bleaching my hair. I'm plucking all my eyelashes out.
That's crazy.
I'm
man.
getting out of there, man.
The runaway theory is bolstered by the absence of any signs of struggle and the fact that the doors to the law office were locked. However, there was apparently a substantial amount of money left in her bank account, which would have helped her start a new life if that were her intention.
You know, she could have met someone else, right?
No, also,
Some heathen,
here's the thing.
a hot heathen who was like, come on, hit the road with me. I got cash. Leave it all here.
Is that I was just about to get to that because I was going to say that, like, I know a lot of people online point out that, okay, starting over is expensive, obviously. However, if you want to successfully make it seem like you've disappeared, you don't then pull out all the money from your bank account.
Right.
That doesn't scan.
Also, it's 1981. You work at Baskin-Robbins for a summer, you can buy a house. Is it possible
There we go.
she was the one who made the phone call about, leading them on a wild goose chase to look for a white house to throw them off her scent?
Now
Whispering,
that's-
harder to identify her voice, because a whisper, you can't totally tell who that is.
Well, that would explain the lack of detail in the tip.
Yeah.
Look, I'll say this. I know a lot of the time when we talk about these disappearance cases, there's always inevitably a theory about the person just vanishing themselves.
Yeah.
And it seems like we lean into that theory because, frankly, it's the most happy theory to get behind.
Sure.
But in this case, this one actually has a lot of weight to it, and I actually do genuinely think it makes the most sense out of all the theories.
I do too.
Because if you just plug in all the circumstantial evidence, which is what we use to say, like, I think that guy's the murderer, if you do that formula, this theory is the one that makes the most sense. The lack of struggle, the door being locked from the inside, her not doing the things she usually does when she steps away from the office. It makes sense for what it's worth. And I didn't even think about the phone tip. Maybe you have somewhat of a detective brain.
Cynthia, thanks for watching.
I believe it. I've stamped it. That's my number one theory.
Cool.
It's my worth it winner.
Next August will mark 40 years since a young legal secretary in Toledo, Ohio disappeared without a trace. When Michael Anderson died in 2008, his obituary said he was preceded in death by his daughter Cynthia. The case, however, is still open, and Ohio's longest active missing persons case. The Toledo Police Department asks that anyone with information contact them. As for whether Cynthia is out there somewhere, a 59-year-old detached from her past, or whether she met a grimmer fate years ago, remains unsolved.
Well, look, I hope that last theory is true, and if that is true and you're watching this, Cynthia, I don't think you are, I hope you're having a great life.
Yeah, I'm rooting for her. Old gal out there. Hope she's living the dream,
She would also join a community of other people that we've covered and hoped that were just out there living their best life, too.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. People have done it. People have gone off the grid, changed their lives. It's easier than you think.
Well, if you vanished, I would look for you if you wanted me to look for you.
Thank you.
But I guess I wouldn't know, unless we had some kind of like code or like a signal. Like if I go to your house and they're like, yeah, nothing, we don't have no trace of Shane Madej, everything is as it was when he left. There's still food on the table, but if in the food there's a single avocado slice, I'll know That's the signal that you just wanted to get away forever.
What I'll do is I'll put a grain of rice in my mailbox.
I feel like it needs to be a little more substantial than that.
That's my signal.
I don't think that's
Look
a good...
for rice in the mailbox.
It's a stupid signal.